यस्य रूपमधिकम् प्रच्छन्नगुप्तं धनम् विद्या भोगकरी यशः सुखकरी विद्या गुरुणा गुरुः विद्या बन्धुजनो विदेशगमने विद्या परं दैवतम् विद्या राजसु पूज्यते न तु धनम् विद्या विहीनः पशुः विद्या प्रशस्यते लोकैः विद्या सर्वत्र गौरवा विद्यया लभते सर्वम् विद्वान् सर्वत्र पूज्यते ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते।
Dr. Pooja Shetty holds a BCom, MCom Business Management and Ph.D. in Commerce and Management with a specialization in Business Policy and Administration. She has also qualified with UGC-NET and SET examinations in Commerce, reflecting her strong academic credentials. With 9 years of teaching experience at both undergraduate and postgraduate levels, Dr. Shetty has contributed extensively to academics and curriculum development. She has also served as a university paper setter for undergraduate programs, highlighting their engagement with academic assessment and quality standards. Currently, she is working as an assistant professor of marketing at PTVA's Institute of Management. An active researcher, Dr. Shetty has published several research papers in UGC-recognized and ABDC-listed journals. Her research interests span consumer behavior, branding, digital marketing, and marketing strategy, with a strong emphasis on theory-driven and application-oriented research that bridges academic insight with real-world marketing practices. So let's welcome Vidyavachspati, Dr. Pooja Shetty.
Greetings to the viewers. I am Dr. Pooja Shetty, currently working as Assistant Professor of Marketing at PTVA's Institute of Management, and I've been in this industry for past 9 years. Before I proceed further and speak about my research journey, I would like to throw some light on why I selected this topic for my research. Since my childhood and my entire education, I have pursued in a rural setup. It has always intrigued me how businesses function in a rural setup, how they do the marketing, because theoretically, we have often studied the Western concepts and what happens in urban areas. So it has always been an interesting concept for me how rural businesses function. As I went ahead and became a professor, came into teaching profession, my inclination has always been towards rural marketing. I have written several papers on rural marketing, and hence I decided that I would pursue my Ph.D. on the topic, a study on organized FMCG retailing in rural areas with special reference to Palghar district. I would like to introduce you to the Palghar district before I move ahead with the research insights. Palghar district was newly introduced by the government of Maharashtra about 10.5 years back. Now, this is primarily a tribal and rural district with about approximately 3 million population. It has about 7 to 8 talukas like Jawhar, Vikramgarh, Palghar town, Dahanu, Vasai, Talasiri, etc. Among these talukas, most of the talukas fall under the tribal area, whereas Palghar and Vasai come under semi-urban areas. Talking about the communities that reside in Palghar, we have Warli, Kori, Katkari and Kokna communities residing, and they have high dependence on agriculture, fishing and wage labor when we speak about livelihoods. We also have pockets of varying literacy levels that affect the consumption pattern in Palghar district. Speaking about the retail landscape structure in Palghar district, most often seen is the Kirana stores, which is the traditional stores. These are mostly dominated by family-owned businesses which have been running for generations. We can also see weekly haats. Weekly haats are temporary structures which often functions on a particular day of a week. We can also see mobile vans which are mobile and move from place to place and sell retail products. All of these three fall under unorganized retail structure. These dominate the Palghar district. But the study focuses on the organized outlets. Palghar can also see emerging chain of retail outlets coming up and going on. So the research rationale says Palghar represents a transitioning rural economy, making it the ideal laboratory to assess the organized retail's real impact beyond metropolitan boundaries. Coming towards the research landscape from broad context to a focus, there have been many studies conducted in this area. There are existing studies on FMCG retail, predominantly focusing on urban and semi-urban areas, but there are very few studies which focus on the retail problems of rural areas and the consumption pattern. Also, even if we can find the studies which are conducted in rural areas, the tools which are used to assess the consumption pattern and the problems and challenges are the ones which are used for the urban areas, which makes it insufficient. There are certain critical missing elements as well. The studies which are already conducted either focus on the consumer buying behavior or they focus on the retailer's challenges. There isn't a single study which focuses on both the problems at a time. So the missing point or the research gap that I'm trying to bridge through this research or I've tried to bridge through this research is an integrated study of consumers' buying behavior as well as retailers' challenges. So I have addressed certain research gaps which I have broken down into three sections. The first one being large-scale district evidence. This research is one of its kind because it focuses on a large data set of about 900 respondents specifically for Palghar, providing a robust district level insight. The second gap that I have addressed through this research is integrated consumer and retailer analysis. So in this, I have tried to bridge the disconnect by simultaneously studying the consumer behavior as well as the retailer challenges to create a holistic market view. And the third section that I have addressed is methodological rigor, addressing the analytical gap by incorporating non-parametric tests as well as parametric tests suited for non-normal rural behavior data. So the key takeaway in this scenario is the study fills the critical void between the general macro retail theories and the specific on-ground realities of transitioning rural districts like Palghar. Objectives of my study. So objectives also I have divided into 5 core sections. The first section focuses on consumer behavior. So in this, the objective is to analyze rural consumer buying behavior towards organized FMCG retailing. So here we've tried to find out what are the factors that affect the buying behavior in a rural area, especially Palghar district. The second section is focusing on satisfaction analysis. The study tries to find out whether the consumer satisfaction is affected by any kind of demographic variable like income, age, education. This objective helps us to find out a pattern, It is a kind of pattern analysis which will help the retailers to give maximum satisfaction to the consumers. The third area or the section of objective that I've identified is retailers' challenges. It helps in examining the operational and structural challenges faced by the rural FMCG retailers. When we speak about the urban retailers, they have ample of opportunities and aiding partners, but when it comes to rural retailers, they face n number of challenges. This research helps us to get insight on what challenges they face. The next objective section is about model development. In my PhD journey, I have gathered certain insights which has helped me to create a grounded theory. It is a kind of a model development and it is about retail integration model for Palghar. And the last objective is to give recommendations to very firstly the most important stakeholders, that is the retailers in Palghar district. The second important stakeholder, the FMCG companies, and the third important stakeholders, that is the policy makers. The research methodology that I have followed for this study. The study is descriptive and analytical in nature. It is survey-based empirical research design. For this research, I have taken the responses of about 900 respondents, which includes 800 rural consumers and 100 rural FMCG retailers, which makes it a rigorous research. I have used multi-stage stratified random sampling method across all selected talukas of Palghar district. I have used a structured questionnaire as a tool to collect the information. At certain places, I have also used schedules and questionnaires in the form of Google Forms to collect the information. Speaking about the data validity was conducted for the research, for which a pilot study was conducted. Reliability was checked via Conbrax's alpha test, and when the questionnaire was found to be suitable, is only after that we started with the proper research by collecting the data of 900 respondents. This study represents one of the largest district level rural FMCG data sets, offering high granular validity, often missing in broader national surveys. Speaking about the theoretical framework and variables and hypotheses that I have applied in my research, I have identified on the basis of my literature review certain independent variables. One of them is price sensitivity, that is to find out the value consciousness among the consumers in rural areas. The second is product availability, that is stock consistency, how it affects the rural buying behavior. The third important independent variable that I have identified is store accessibility, that is the distance and convenience that consumers often give primary importance. The next important element or the independent variable is promotional schemes, how promotional schemes often attract rural customers and consumers. And the last independent variable that I have considered for my research is brand trust, that is reliability and quality. On the basis of these independent variables, I have selected certain dependent variables and tested them. The first is purchase frequency, the second is satisfaction level, and the third is store preference. And on the basis of these dependent variables, I have formed three key hypotheses. The first hypothesis, all these hypotheses are in the form of null hypothesis. The first hypothesis focuses on demographic, which says no significant difference in satisfaction across varying income groups. The second null hypothesis is about perception, which says there is no significant variation in store perception across education levels. And the third null hypothesis is about retailers, which says retailers do not differ significantly by scale of operation. All these three hypotheses, key hypotheses, have certain sub-hypotheses as well, which have been tested. Coming to the statistical part, I have selected two tests for my hypothesis testing. The first is a parametric test, which is analysis of variance, also known as ANOVA test. I have used this test because I had to compare mean satisfaction levels across multiple demographic groups such as age, income, education simultaneously. And why I selected this test or why it mattered more for this study is because it's robust for large consumer samples, which is 800 in my case. It controls the type 1 error in multi-group comparisons. It identifies specific group variances in purchase behavior. The second statistical tool that I used for my testing is a non-parametric test, which is Kruskal-Wallis test. And the reason why I used this test is it is applied wherever behavioral data violates normality assumptions to test distribution differences. And why it mattered for my research is because it was appropriate for a skewed rural income and spending data. It does not assume normal distribution of population, and it captures nuances in ranked preference data. So methodologically speaking, by combining parametric and non-parametric approaches, this study ensures analytical rigor, robustness against outliers, and contextual accuracy specifically for rural behavioral data. Coming to the key findings and result analysis, this is divided into two parts. One is the consumer side findings, the other is retailer side findings. I would like to start with the consumer side findings. It is divided into three sections. The first is what drives the choice of stores, drivers of store choice. So, as per the study, most of the respondents prefer price suitability, that means they are value conscious. So, about 38% of the respondents felt price is a primary factor that made them choose a particular retail outlet. The second most popular reason is availability of SKUs, which made them choose a particular store. And 15% of the respondents felt trust factor is one of the important reasons while choosing a retail outlet. Speaking about the second section, satisfaction by income group. So here in the research, we had divided the respondents into three groups: low income group, middle income group, and high income group. There is a positive correlation between the income levels and the satisfaction levels. As the study says, out of all the respondents under high income group, 84% of them were satisfied by the retail outlets that are available or that are working in the Palghar district, whereas low income group, it was only 64% who were satisfied. Coming to the third section of this, that is the retail format preference. So we have, as we know, we've discussed, we have two formats: organized structure and unorganized retail structure. So we asked the different reasons for which they would prefer certain structure. The first was monthly bulk purchases. So out of all the respondents, 62% of the respondents felt that they would go for organized structure if they had to make a monthly bulk purchase. For the second point, that is packaged staples, again here about 58% of the respondents felt that they would prefer organized structures for buying packaged staples. Coming to the third point, that is daily convenience needs. In this case, we can see a contrast. About 74% of the respondents prefer unorganized structure when it comes to daily convenience needs. And speaking about the last point, that is credit-based purchases. Here we can see about a whooping 90% of the respondents prefer unorganized retail structure if they want a credit-based purchases. So the core insight says that rural consumers are value conscious, rational, and selectively modern as they adopt organized retailing only for bulk value while retaining kiranas and traditional outlets for convenience and their credit purposes. Coming to the second section of the result analysis, which focuses on the retailer's findings, it is again divided into three sections. The first section focuses on structural adaptation chain. Here we have tried to identify the problem evidence and insight that we have derived. The problem that retailers face is rising competition and margin pressure from organized chains. The evidence is significant variance in challenges, and the insight that we have derived is they need to shift towards hybrid models and there has to be a significant digital adoption. Coming to the second section, this speaks about the challenge severity by retailer type. So here again in the research, we have divided the types of retailers into three basic sections. The first is micro and kiosks, the second is small mom and pop stores, and the third is modern stores. So going by the insights by all three of the retail outlets, we have found that the major challenge or the severe challenge that all three sections face is low margins, that is margin pressure. Coming to the third important section of this finding is digital payment adoption. So it is found that almost all three sections, when we speak about retail outlets, medium kiosks, small mom and pop, and modern outlets, all of these outlets have adopted digital payment systems for them. But then it is the medium modern retailers with 71% adoption rate, small retailers with 58%, and micro retailers with 46%. So there is a strong correlation between store size and digital readiness. So overall, we can see the challenges that they face. We can identify them into four important points. The first is margins, which are very thin and volatile and can be seen across all the retail outlets and formats. Second is supply. There is definitely a supply chain management which works efficiently, but it's inconsistent at certain times. Credit facility. These retailers do need credit. They get credit, but informally. So there is possibly no credit facility available formally, or there's a possibility it is available formally, but they have not accessed it or are not aware about it. And the last and the most important gap is technical gap, skill gap. The retailers out there often feel that selling the products is the only skill that they require, but then technologically they fall back. So the key conclusion here is small rural retailers are not disappearing. They are structurally adopting to coexist with the organized formats. On the basis of statistical inferences and insights gathered during my PhD journey, I have created a model, a grounded theory, which is called Palghar Rural FMCG Retail Integration Model. Now, this model is based on three pillars. The first pillar is about consumer value system, which focuses on price fairness, that is value for money perception, trust, which is brand and retailers' credibility, and accessibility, which is physical and mental reach. The second pillar focuses on retail capability, which focuses on inventory which focuses on inventory efficiency, that is stock availability and rotation, localized mix, that is region specific assortment of merchandise, and digital readiness with regards to payments and ordering technology. And the third pillar, which is often ignored by most of the studies, is institutional ecosystem. It includes infrastructure, that is logistics and connectivity, policy support. As I said, retailers often get credit but in informal way, so there can be policy support. There definitely exist many policies, many formal policies, but retailers may not be aware of it. So there can be an awareness program for these retailers. And the third is supply chain management, that is farm to fork linkages considering the tribal legacy of Palghar. Application of this model and some suggestions. So, in this research, I've tried to give suggestions to three important stakeholders. The first being retailers. The retailers now need to come out of the box and embrace hybrid sourcing models. When we speak about technology or digital integration, we often only focus about digital payments, but that is not entire technology. They also need to focus about using technology for placing orders and inventory management. Focus on essential SKUs. Most of the times, retailers stock unnecessary SKUs which may not be useful for the rural customers. So they need to do a proper research and stock only the SKUs which is useful to the region specific consumers. The second stakeholders that I would like to give suggestions, I've given the suggestions in my research, is FMCG companies. That is, the first is to adopt LUP strategies, that they can come up with small pack, low unit price architecture. They can also have rural promotions. The promotions which are meant for masses may not work for rural as well. The urban consumer buying behavior and perception is much different than rural. So the FMCG companies need to have a tailor-made promotional policies for the rural customers and consumers, and channel optimization. They need to have a direct distribution channel to the rural hubs, like adopting a hub and spoke model, which will eliminate unnecessary middlemen and make the products much cheaper so that rural consumers can afford it, ultimately leading to a better satisfaction level. And the third important stakeholder is policymakers. So for them, very important is to come up with retail skill training. There can be training programs for the retailers on how to manage inventory and digital literacy programs. There has to be support for coexistence. We need to understand that completely organized retail structure is not beneficial for a tribal setup. There has to be coexistence of organized as well as unorganized sector, considering the varying income sections. And lastly, about the infrastructure, where there has to be a last mile logistics and connectivity. So the final analysis and conclusion is there has to be a complementary coexistence. How much ever we say that we require organized structure, but we also need to understand that the major demographics of Palghar has low educated people with low income groups. So we need unorganized structures as well. There should be strategic rural markets. Rural markets are dynamic, adaptive, and strategic. Consumer buying behavior is shifting from purely price driven to value rational, demanding both affordability and organized efficiency. And the last I would like to say is integration over domination. Long term sustainability lies in integration, not domination. Hybrid models combining organized supply chains with local retailers, each offering the most viable path forward. Thank you. And I would like to end this with that the research positions Palghar not as a peripheral market but as a central pillar of India's FMCG future. Thank you.
ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशं पवित्रमिह विद्यते